I have no problem doing an OBS talk or C10 talk sale on these things because I just like seeing them get out of there. So maybe we should.
What up, what up, OBS Nation coming at you. We've got Joe from PSI, and we're pretty excited about this one because what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about Project Tan Lines and really what you guys have done at Performance System Integration, PSI, PSIconversion.com. You guys know they're a big sponsor of OBS Talk, C10 Talk. You're thinking, hey, I want to put an LS and LT-based motor into my truck. We know everybody's doing that. Well, PSI is your wire it up and fire it up place, but you guys are also truck enthusiasts. Joe,
Yeah,
you've got a great truck. You guys have had a lot of fun with this truck. A lot of kind of feels like it's a little bit of an R&D as well. Tell us a little bit about Project Tan Lines, and thanks for taking time to be on OBS Talk.
Yeah. No, thanks, Ronnie. I appreciate it. And I mean, that's my truck behind me. It's a 94 OBS. And John and I is my partner. We've always had trucks. I mean, I'm personally a 67 to 72 biggest fan. 68 is my favorite. So I've got a 68 that's pretty nice. But this we got as a shop truck, something to work on where we could all be together working on it. So it was a $1,500 truck, which is cheap in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Short bed, regular cab. And we're looking to do something kind of neat with it. Of course, LS swap it. And, I was looking at what to do different in the back. And that's kind of the most unique thing about it is that I'm running a 5th gen Camaro rear end in the thing. So it's the only truck around that's cambered in the back. It's pretty cool. So, thinking, is it going to work or not? Went to some used car lots at night, started measuring Camaro rear ends. I'm like, I think this is going to work. So got one for $800 on eBay, shipped to my door here. Rolled it under the truck, and we're like, it's definitely going to work. So we came up with the brackets to do it. It goes in like a C-notch. We've got some videos on it. You can kind of see it there, but you cut a big C-notch, you bolt these brackets in, you bolt that rear end up, and now you're running an IRS in a pickup truck. So, all factory Camaro stuff rides way better than stock. It's got more grip than stock. I've upgraded it since then with a bunch of parts from UMI, from Detroit Speed, and in case you're wondering, I mean, it fits 19 by 12s without cutting the wheel well. Factory, not factory, but aftermarket 19 by 12s for a Camaro fit in the back of an OBS without tubbing it or anything. So otherwise, the truck, like you've said, I mean, I don't want to start selling parts until we really, beat the crap out of them. And that's what we did all year. A bunch of local autocrosses. I've done a couple of events at UMI, we're close friends with them. So there's Muscle on the Mountain, King of the Mountain. And then I've done LS Fest. I was down at VAR, Virginia International Raceway, with Optima, which was pretty cool. So I was on the small track there, but doing like 115-ish with the truck, and I mean it was hauling butt. So
what would you say was the biggest challenge in that conversion when you initially go to the junkyard, you find a 5th gen Camaro, and you're like, I can't believe this is going to work. Let's have some fun with it. What was the biggest challenge?
So it's really figuring out, I did it for myself first. So it's figuring out if there was a business case, but in this case, I don't want to say it wasn't a challenge, but it went in so easy that I'm like, this has to be a part for people, because it kind of just, spoke for itself that this is going to go in easy as a C-notch. We're looking at, you're keeping the rear end, doing C-notch, putting disc brakes on the back and all that stuff. And this thing ends up, you save 75 pounds off the rear versus the stock leaf springs and all that. And now I got a Posi, I got an IRS, I got Brembos. So it's kind of hard to beat. I mean,
it almost pays for itself, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the ones we've sold, I think, are because it's less money than rebuilding your rear end and putting disc brakes on it. People aren't all doing what I did with the truck. I've got like 3,000 miles on it, and most of them are, at tracks. I drive it around a lot, but cruising in the summer and stuff. We have some cool, like beach kind of shows here, but the rear has worked very well.
So the biggest question is going to be whether or not, if you're not going to race your truck, should you do it, and the advantages and the disadvantages. And It sounds like there's really not that many disadvantages. And then the big thing is, hey, if I'm going to do, the IRS in the rear, what am I going to do in the front to
in the
get the
front.
right stance?
Yep. Yeah. So, and I've got my truck, corner balanced, but what I did in the front was OBS Chevy racing arms on the uppers with their coilover kit. RideTech makes some cool stuff, and
So you
what
got
else are they doing?
QA1
QA1. Okay. Yes.
and you got React, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
Travis from
Yeah.
AZ Pro. So there's so many different options, but you can go with a coil front end,
Yes.
and there's a
Exactly.
lot of options out there.
Yeah. So
RideTech.
right now I had matched RideTech coilovers front and rear, and I'm upgrading their single adjustables. So I'm going with some Vikings for this coming season, working with them. But really, all you do is you get a rear coilover for a Camaro. There's guys that have bagged this. There's a couple of long bed people that have done it. We've only run it on our short bed regular cab, but once you come out with it for one truck, then somebody wants it for the long bed or for the extended cab. But
Yeah.
as far as dealing with the front grip versus the back, I mean that was my biggest challenge. Is the rear now has got so much more grip than it used to and rides better. They're figuring out the front balance, alignment settings and tires. I mean, I'm running a 315 all around on the thing, 315 squared, like
Yep.
like your buddy
Terry.
Yeah.
Yep.
So running fat. I mean, these are my winter wheels. We have winter here, but otherwise I run a 315 all around with the big spacer on the front and run the Willwood spindles. React does a good setup too, and they've got their own hub.
What would you say the drop is with the tire wheel that you have? I can see the lip it's a nice stance. What would you say the rear drop?
You can go lower. I mean, right at normally, I've got a 26 and a half inch wheel and it tucks by like half an inch. But for the big track I was just on, I had to raise the front up because I was hitting the wheel wells in the front. There's a lot more roll when you're doing those higher speeds. So to get the whole thing corner balance, I picked up the back, but that it tucks, like a 26-inch wheel. It's hard to give an exact measurement because it depended. Like this was a 6-cylinder truck to start with, but it's like, I mean, right, I've kind of got a 4.7 drop on the thing now. Well, not right now because the back is up, but
Yeah, but I could see it being a 5.7, and you can adjust your coil. And then the other
yes,
question would be specifically, we'll talk about the rear end. Obviously, the front end ends up being we almost always have to roll the inner fenders. You see people do a
yep.
bat, people do a stick, and just try to get that to roll. Are you getting when you are real low? Are you getting any tire rub on that?
So I had like 2 degrees of camber in the back, and these trucks aren't perfect. So on the driver's side, I had rubbing on the inner wheel well. Passenger side, I didn't. It ended up being that was too much camber for everything I was doing anyway. I was wearing the inside tires, so when I took that out, it fit like I'm gonna say perfectly, but it fit perfectly. I mean, I can get my hand back here. There's still room. The same with the outside. You can't see here, but if you were slammed, like a 315 basically takes up that whole wheel well. But I don't want to say it's a miracle, but it fit pretty darn well in there without cutting anything.
Yeah, well, and that's perfect. And you guys have figured that out. And for the audience,
Exactly.
remember, they've already done it. So I think we love the challenge and we like to play around with it. And then you do it and you're thinking, holy shit, I can't believe this is working this good. And it has for you.
And
And it's not just something you're driving down to the grocery store. It's something that it's track ready, it's race ready, and it's proven.
no, exactly. And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to sell it until we had proven it.
Yeah. Okay. So
So
you guys are, picking up every 5th-gen Camaro rear end you can. You buy them, you're buying them kind of cheap. You're going through them, you're cleaning them
yep.
up, you're adding your brackets. What's that retailing right now?
So the brackets, it's the brackets with all the hardware and the instructions. That's like 14. We have some sales once in a while. The more I sell, the cheaper they're going to be.
Well,
But
if I remember when you first got it and we did a video and we put it out to the
yep.
world, we did a post and I think you're almost worried about having enough. Do you feel like that challenge is being met where you're like, hey, I can handle, if I got 10 orders, I'm not going to be behind.
Yes, yeah, we're way beyond that number. So that I'm going to have a lot more competition, I think, at these truck events.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
the only guy running them now, but it's a cool feeling. So
Well, you guys are, your own worst enemy, right? You come up with a product, you do a little R&D, you do some
yeah,
things, and now you're going to have that availability for
yeah,
the
but yeah, it's
customer.
cool. I mean, I need the driver mod now. So
So
You know,
14,
there's
1,500 bucks, and then plus shipping is obviously going to be a big one. Have you
yes,
guys
yeah.
figured out what's it cost about to ship?
I mean, it depends where it's going, but it ends up being like $60. But
Oh, wow, that's it.
I mean, I hadn't thought about it, but I have, I have no problem doing an OBS talk or C10 talk sale on these things because I just like seeing them get out of there. So maybe
Yeah,
we should
maybe
do it.
we'll do a little sale. We'll come up with something. I'll talk to them, and then what we'll do is I'll put it in my show notes at the beginning, and then we'll do a post. But yeah, anything that, like you said, hey, we've got a bunch of them in stock, and this gets them out there, and this is the shipping on it, and you
Yep.
guys, go find yourself a Camaro, and yeah, it's
Yeah, that part works well because there's really no use for those rear ends. That you can get one from a Caprice, a G8, or a Camaro, and guys take the motor and trans. That's what our business is, the harnesses. But the whole rear subframe doesn't have a whole lot of value otherwise. So,
Yeah, that's cool. I should go comb some of the junkyards and see what's all out there.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they're
definitely.
the motors are already gone, but finding that Camaro rear end,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a no-brainer.
yeah,
Um
yeah.
so in your R&D, did you guys end up changing a lot of different things, or did you end up, if I remember right too, it was like you guys had the most neon green
Oh
color. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
kind of a neon yellow green that you made the brackets, and then you had that open rear end or
Yeah,
open
so
bed.
those are the brackets I'm running. They're hard to see in there, but I'm still running the original ones, the ones that we painted. When you get them, they're powder coated black, so they're not as obvious as ours. But yeah, we kind of went for this '80s theme. I don't know if you can see
Yeah,
it there,
yeah,
'80s '90s theme on the whole truck. So if you checked out my truck, you could see under the hood the engine's painted like the retro cooler, like the Igloo retro cooler.
yeah, yeah.
That's why we went with that color on the brackets, and it lets me see if anything's going wrong. Did the paint crack or something from the thing bending? And we've had GoPros under there. There's hadn't had any issues. The thing that we learned was fuel tank wise. So if you're using your factory tank, you really got to beat the hell out of one corner because it hits the subframe. But when I put this thing on the scales, the driver's side's a lot heavier than the passenger
Really?
side anyway. So I'm
Just
running
all
the true dual
fuel.
exhaust. What's that?
All just fuel.
Yes, fuel and me. You're both
Yeah,
sitting over
yeah,
there. So I'm running a Mustang tank, like you do in the C10, behind the rear end, and I've
yep,
got a license plate fill behind that.
yeah.
So you can use the stock tank. You could do a retrofit. You could do like another kind of tank that goes behind the rear end. You could do a cell, but I've tried. I mean, R&D wise, I've put S10 tanks in here. They also have a little interference, but crew cab S10 works in this truck. You just kind of got to beat the top of the tank. But what that gives you is a tank now that's got baffles in it. Like it was an EFI tank to begin with, as opposed to just throwing a tank in the factory, throwing a pump in the factory tank where you don't have those baffles. You don't want that electric pump going dry. So
What have you figured out what the best aftermarket tank's going to be?
I mean, I like what I did, and I'm running an Aeromotive Stealth 2 tank for a Mustang, which puts the weight, helps with the weight distribution, but it's behind the rear wheels. It's right in the center, doing the little bed fill. But otherwise, there's no aftermarket OBS tank, and I'm not sure why because you can't run the true dual unless you run it up the passenger side. And for this kind of thing, for autocross, road course stuff, you want the corner balance to be right. So if
What's
I could
that?
take
What's the capacity of that tank you're running?
this one's 16 gallons. There's a
Okay, that's
taller, so
not
that's
bad.
the first gen Mustang, like the 64 or the
Yeah,
67. They make a 20 or 21. That's the second gen that's deeper. It depends, yeah, what you're doing on road trips or what kind of fuel economy you get.
I'm gonna have to reach out to like Boyd's and find out. I thought that they did an OBS tank, but maybe they don't, and maybe they should.
Yeah, I mean, and OBS, yeah, where you put it is kind of up to what you're going to do with the truck. But putting it on the driver's side to me doesn't make sense. When you look at how much more weight's on that than. But most people aren't scaling the truck. I didn't realize it until we did it.
Well, I think that everybody likes having the tank in the rear anyways. Once you're already taking your bed off and you're going to do all that, why not just relocate it? Anyway,
Yep.
the only thing obviously with a CK truck versus maybe, like a 68 is, getting it out of the cab. And then a lot of times it's like, well, the door's there. Now what do I do? And,
Yes.
some people, in
Yeah.
this case, and I never did follow it. Did you end up, because you wrecked Project Tan Lines, and we'll get into that. Did you end up covering the door and then wrapping it, or you just wrapped it and left the door and then,
I
did you?
wrapped it and left the door and wrapped the door, but I didn't think of wrapping right over the door. That would have looked cleaner.
Yeah. Yeah.
You brought it up right now. I could have done that.
Yeah, no, that's kind of funny. You could have done that. But either way, it doesn't really matter. And then getting that capacity. I wonder if Boyd's has done that where I'll ask them if they, if they're
Yeah, no,
going
that's
to,
yeah.
because I would have thought that they would. And maybe Travis from AZ Pro as well knows, because they deal with that a lot more. But there's
Yeah, no, that's a
obviously
good question for
the
them.
aftermarket is getting to the point where it's one of those things where it's constantly driving, and more parts are available than ever before.
Yep. No, exactly. So, we're doing go right ahead.
Well, I was just wondering from the shock perspective too. A lot of times where guys are going to add, like you said, with Viking, maybe an Alden, a Ride Tech, different options that you have, a QA1. If you're like, hey, this is what shock has worked the best for me with this kit, because you don't get shocks with it, right? You're just getting your.
No, yeah, the shocks are any shock you want. Some guys have done bags, but you end up like a 12-inch right height shock, which you can get from anybody.
Yeah.
I did the ride techs because I've had ride techs on other cars for 15 years, but Viking goes to a lot of these events and supports things, so that's why I'm giving them a shot this year. But I
So
mean, I personally again know people who run the Alden Americans or who run the QA ones.
yeah. Yeah, and there's plenty of options, more so
Yeah,
than ever before. I think
exactly.
the other thing that I would wonder about is where did you make your measurements? I think you just said maybe a 12-inch, but were you putting it at ride height, and then were you measuring, and walk us through your shock? Because that ends up being the biggest thing, right? Is you're like, well, this is where I want to ride, but I do want some adjustability.
Yes, yeah. So that was the idea. Then I don't have the number exactly offhand. It's on the website, but I think it's like a 12-inch height with it's like a 4-inch stroke shock. So you're right in the middle, a little more. You get a little more compression than So maybe it was like a 12, and it'll extend like 2.5 and compress an inch and a half.
Yeah.
You want some compliance with the IRS, and you don't want to totally lock it up like with the big rear bar.
Yeah,
But
and like you said, I assume the part number's on the website there. So when somebody buys the kit, you go to the junkyard, you find your scrapped out Camaro, you get the kit, you get the brackets, it's all there for you, powder coated black, 1,500 bucks, $60 to ship it. So just budget yourself $1,500 and go find yourself your parts at the junkyard. And before you know it, if you play your cards right, for under 3 grand, you're gonna have an IRS, OBS truck.
yes, yeah, yeah, that's the beauty of it. Yeah, under 3 grand, which you could spend on the rear and disc brakes and all that stuff. And you're gonna have to buy coilovers again, so it ends up
Yeah.
working well. I mean,
Did you
otherwise,
did you find that once you got your Camaro, did you go through and rebuild a lot of it, or at what point was your scrapped
so
out
I ran
car?
it about a year, factory stuff, factory bushings everywhere to make sure, it works that way. And then when I got a little better driving, a little more serious, I went to UMI. We're good partners with them. We're in New Jersey, they're right in PA. So they make Camaro upgrade parts. So what I did was I asked Ramy over there, what are the parts that you recommend on the Camaro? And it's toe links, it's trailing arms, stuff that keeps the toe from changing, when you're hard on the throttle.
Yeah.
So I upgraded those things, on the rear. So I'm running a bunch of UMI stuff now.
Well, and I think the key is get it set up, get it to where you want it, and then at that point you really get to have fun and play with it and be like, well, okay, I got a season. Or maybe if you're not even racing, you're like, well, this is the weak link, or this is wore
Yes.
out. So
Yeah.
the guy says, hey, I don't want to spend all my money, and then you go back through and you rebuild everything,
Yep.
and if there is an off season for you, like for you guys, it's like, hey, we're going to run hard all summer, and then in the winter I'm going to break everything down and go through it. In Arizona, it's more of the heat probably than anything, but depending on where you're located, throw it all in there, you know, and you, for the most part, you do get to find out what your donor, you know, like, oh
Yes,
shit,
yeah.
this is a 150,000 mile car versus an 80,000 mile car.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to upgrade anything. I mean, I ran it with no help. This was pretty low miles, but you don't have to upgrade anything. I mean, the other cool part is, you want to try out rear sway bars? Well, there's dozens of options for a Camaro.
Yeah.
It's
More
not,
so
you're
than a
limited still. OBS
94
stuff's pretty
Chevy
new.
truck.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, you're limited to what's available for these trucks. So,
And I don't think there will be, but have you thought about it for anything else, even considering like an NBS truck?
uh, yeah, I mean, it's a matter of which one do I want next. And yeah, I mean, there's some cool, new body styles that are out there. I like the Sierras, but
Well, I
they're a
guess
little
what I
heavier.
mean is do you think that there is going to be an application as well, so you could do
Yes.
this? Okay.
Yeah, is it, I'm a 67 to 72 guy, so is it that next, square bodies, or is it the new body style? And you don't do these trucks, but I'd love an extreme blazer, an S10 blazer,
Yeah.
and
Oh
one
no,
of those. Yeah.
I've got one. My son's got an
Okay.
86
All right.
and it's lowered and yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah, the
love
mini truck stuff is coming back.
yeah, and I love the square S10 more so. The funny thing
Yeah,
is
yeah.
I had a 93 back in the day and I don't know if that round S10 will come back. I guess it will eventually, but the square stuff is definitely getting hot right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I could find a cheap Typhoon, which I've been looking at them,
Yeah.
I would do that. I do all-wheel drive, IRS, LS swap it, obviously, but
What about just finding yourself an OG Blazer and, you know, making it your own version of a Typhoon,
yes, yeah,
really?
that's the smarter way to go. So, but I got to do it when I'm out in Arizona because everything up here has rust and rot. So,
Well, I got one for you because I think he's going to sell it. I keep telling him not to sell it. This thing
really?
is, oh yeah, it's a sweet little Blazer. It's a very rust-free, dry 86 tan original paint.
Okay.
He got it from Big Ten Bowman, and
Well,
the the problem is the interior is a little shot. It's got the original motor. He drove it all over. It's a sweet. I'll send you pictures on it. I love it. You know, I told him, dude, keep the damn thing. I think you'll regret it. But like I said earlier, before I think we went on air. He just picked up a 2019 Camaro.
yep.
You know, so being a 21-year-old kid, you can only have so many vehicles. He's got a 66 that's below us, and that's getting
Okay.
worked on. And then the 86 S10, and then the new Camaro. So life's good being a kid that lives at home,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess. But
No, it's-
you got them in stock. Um, are you finding that most guys are thinking they're going to race their trucks before, and that's what they're thinking that they want this application? Because
most people are looking at it, I think, for the affordability, and most of our questions are, "What's the ride like? Can I still load stuff in the bed?" And I do that.
yeah,
The race community is, I mean, you know, the race stuff seems to sell parts. I mean, we're not here just to sell those parts, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. Most people, I think, are doing it to drive on the street.
okay, good. And the other thing too, like you said, hey, you can get some bags, right? And you know, with all the different options, there's plenty of options to where you can
Yes.
have a bag set up. And if you're like, hey, I'm hauling something or I'm working or however, it's not going to be that complicated to go bags and have some, you know, adjustability there, more so than you would with your coilover. But I do feel like people are really going more coil than ever.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what we see. And, it's rare we get a bag question.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're more in the bag world out there
Yeah,
than I.
we are, and that's why I kind of wonder. But at the same time, I will say that with the popularity of autocross and pro touring, we are seeing a big change there, and you're seeing that huge in your world too. So, one thing also for you guys to follow is Project Tan Lines. You know, you wrecked it, then you
Yes.
wrapped it. You came out with I love the concept of bringing that '90s vibe. What's next for this truck?
So it's, this winter I'm changing some alignment specs in the front, upgrading to the Vikings, and so the truck's, it's unusual because it's got the independent rear. Right now I'm running a Nissan Trans from a Frontier. I'm probably going to change that this winter. It's LS swap, heads cam LS2, and really what's next is for me to get better with the truck. Yeah.
Sure,
So, it's
sure.
got a lot more potential than I've got ability.
Well, and if I remember right, the Nissan Trans for the audience, because they're thinking, why the hell does he have a Nissan Trans? That's the 6-speed standard, right? To put behind
Yes.
the LS that really gives you that standard. If you're not going to go with a TR 660 or up a modern, even like I'm trying to think what else I guess you could do. What's
Yeah, people do an AR5, but or they do the CD09, which is from a 350Z. But we do work with the company LOJ who does Nissan swap stuff. If you ever seen this truck, he's got a Frontier twin turbo all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
So he recommended the Trans. The Trans is bulletproof, super low miles. It's like say $600 at a junkyard. But
Yeah.
I'm looking to try something different, maybe tap shift or something like that this coming season.
So will you go 8-speed or 10-speed and then just go steering wheel controls?
I think I might do 8 speed, yeah, with the tap shifters because when you're learning how to autocross and drive on some of these circuits, it's a little bit easier to not have to worry about what gear you're in. So
Yeah. Well, I think the Nissan setup is bang for your buck. They're very hard to find. I will tell you that. I know my son was looking for a long time, even when we first met you
okay,
guys at LS Fest.
yep,
It's one of those things where they're hard to find. And then having the steering wheel controls, I mean, anymore, that's a no-brainer, right? You're really
yeah,
getting all the comfort because you have the IRS in the rear. So you're getting the ride comfort, and now you're just integrating more of that technology.
yeah. No, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. The more comfortable you are behind that wheel, the quicker you're going to go.
Well, and the audience is all winning, right? The consumer, because you guys, it's not it, even though it is your hobby, you're obviously, you're a for-profit business.
Yes,
So it's
yep,
fun to be able to say, well, we have this hobby and we're integrating those things into our hobby, and the consumer's going to win, especially the consumer that wants to get out and tear up the track with their truck. Or some guys might not be that into it and they're like, hey, I just steering wheel controls or paddle shifts are freaking awesome. And
yes, no,
I
exactly.
could
Yeah, we
sit here
sell.
and and then now, are you guys up to the 10-speed controllers too now?
Yeah, so we do, if you got a Gen 5 and LT motor, we do 6 speed, 8 speed, and then 10 speed. And to get that stuff to work, what we do is we buy all the different options and we try them out ourselves. That way, you're installing this thing and you might be in Arizona, you might be in Abu Dhabi. We make sure that whatever combo you're throwing at it, we know is going to work. So we have it's a 90 OBS long bed, and that thing is it was rode hard. So it's had every transmission possible in there. Manuals, 4L60, 4L80, 6L80, 8L90, 10L90, and there's two more 10L90s going in for R&D. So we know they work, and they all run with the tap shifter.
What motor's in the test mule?
So that one's got an LT with a got an LT1 but with an LT4 blower on it,
Okay,
and it's got a 10 speed. The 10 speed in it right now is from a Camaro. Then we have a Jam Performance one sitting here in the garage that's going in next. They want to make
nice.
sure the tune is pretty dialed in. Obviously, every vehicle is different, and we always kind of say that. The nice thing is it's factory controllers, so if you bring it to a guy who's tuned your 2019 Camaro, well, he can tune this. Or he's tuned your 2019 truck, he can tune
Yeah.
this. But we want to make sure it's shifting good and all those kind of things.
So what's your biggest challenge? What are you guys looking at for 2024 with everything that you got going on? One thing I know that we really need to let the audience know is about your social media.
Oh yeah.
I remember when was it Nikki? You guys started your social media, and your social media, you had it going on. I mean, it was moving and shaking, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, we lost it.
Yeah, yeah, it was taking off. We were doing a bunch of YouTube videos and Instagram was hitting pretty good. And somehow towards the end of the summer, we got hacked. So our account is still in Instagram jail. I paid a guy in Turkey a couple $100 for nothing. I didn't think I was going to get it back, but I'm like, all right, it's a few $100. Didn't work. So what we did while we were at LS Fest is just created a new account, and it's been slow to grow, but it's wired by PSI. We're going to keep that one around. So it's wired by PSI. Then I've got my project hand lines for the truck itself, but we're trying to grow that one. And if and when we get the other one back, we'll have a couple more platforms to share stuff on.
What is Instagram? I know they're almost impossible to get a hold of. When you
Oh,
say,
yeah,
hey,
we
what,
have, yeah. We
nothing.
haven't spoken to a person on the phone at all. It's a lot of meta support.
Yeah.
So
So would you say
Disappointing.
that, from the audience perspective, what would you do different for your account? Did you have it secondary backed up?
Oh, I'm not sure what that is, so I'd say no.
So what it means is like if somebody else logs into the account, it'll send me a text and it'll say, "Hey, is this you trying to log into your account?"
So we have like the two-factor authentication, but that setting, at least it never went to me if that happened.
Wow, it's so scary, different accounts and you work so hard for years and years,
Yes.
and then all of a sudden somebody just takes it and then, who knows what's on there next and you're like, "Hey." The other thing I see a lot is people set up fake accounts and then people will send them to me and like, "Is this you?" And I'm all, "No, it's not me. It's somebody just took the picture and they're, they have
Yes.
eight
Yeah. Yeah. I
followers."
remember that. Yep. I remember that happening with you. In this case, I haven't seen a new PSI conversion pop
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah.
So
You're
we're
like,
still in jail with them.
sell
But
sell our stuff, help us sell our stuff.
yeah.
Did you see a change in sales or anything from that
Yeah, I
perspective?
mean, it affected traffic. Yeah, I mean, one of the goals this year is to work more on the website SEO stuff, and we always try to get out to a bunch of shows. So
Yeah.
that's really the difference. We haven't been out to you in a couple of years, but yeah, we did. All the LS Fests and some good guys and C10 Nationals and some Optima events, the UMI events. But we're not just truck people, but we love the truck audience, and we all have trucks, and it's pretty unique and badass to be competing in the truck category somewhere. So, and you can bring everything with you in the bed.
Yeah, put it in and then get race ready and rip it.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
right. It's funny. It's harder than ever. You got marketing tools with YouTube and social media, different things from Facebook to Instagram. And then you gotta hit the streets, right? Boots on the ground, out there
yes,
answering questions. Just like when we first met you guys at LS, it was West.
yeah, West, yep.
West, yeah. But all right. So what else is happening for 2024?
So there's we got new parts. I mean, I've got some other new OBS parts that we had done for this truck. Some small stuff, pedal mounts, harness bar, those type of things. And I'm running some like a DeWitt sells a cool PWM fan which works perfectly on the factory radiator. So I wanted to test that out this year, but it's not on off. It slowly ramps up and pulls a ton of air. So I've had it on the track at VIR in the summer and it worked well.
Yeah.
But the big thing we're doing besides all the new 10-speed stuff is an LS Classic, like we're calling it. So if you have an engine, LS engine, which you've seen and looks pretty cool, but what we make and what we've made for a couple of years private for other companies is wiring to make it look like a small block or big block. Or I'm a Buick guy, so make it look like a nailhead Buick engine. So we do a harness for that, and then as well some mechanical parts, some hard parts. So you take a single plane intake, you throw your factory throttle body on there, and we make adapters so you can put any air cleaner on the top of that. It's all pretty affordable. It's like $250, for these two brackets. And the different thing is it holds your inlet air temp sensor and it holds your map sensor in that bracket. So everything's meant to work together. And it's
Well,
again another part that we run ourselves.
and it looks cool, right? So
It
you
looks
get that
cool. I mean,
retro styling.
yes, that's the
And for
big
the
push.
audience, if you subscribe to any magazine, Low Car, that's a big push for them. I've seen in 2023
Yes.
where they're doing their LS Classic stuff.
Yep.
It's on the back of the magazines a lot of times, and you'll see their ads. So you guys are
Yeah.
working with them and pushing that out.
Oh, it's
No?
our own product. No. So I
Okay.
wasn't going to spend, 1,200 $1,400 bucks on an air cleaner base. So we designed one ourselves that works with the factory throttle body with that stud up the middle. So you can run any air cleaner you want. And I'm a
Perfect.
Buick guy too. So there's this cool Star Wars air cleaner they call it for Buick. So that's going in my Buick.
Okay. Yeah,
They
and like
make a
you
nice
said, it's
product, but
250 bucks.
yes, for both pieces, and you could throw any air cleaner you want on there. So
Okay. So if you guys want to find out more information about their fifth gen Camaro
yeah,
IRS kit, obviously their LS Classic stuff. And then I talked to Joe earlier, and I think we're going to get Joe and John on, and we're going to talk more about all the different wiring upgrades because that's something that we probably could get in the weeds on for sure.
yes.
And they are your go-to. So again, if you're thinking about it and you're like, hey, I want to convert to an LSLT base motor, you've heard the commercial a million times, wire it up, fire it up, PSI Conversion.com. And I always kind of, at least at the beginning of this relationship, it was conversions, but it's not. It's PSI
No,
Conversion.
yeah.
And
We
yeah,
own that site too. It'll take you there, but
either
yeah,
way, you're going to get there. That's smart to put that.
yeah.
So, and then I think we really need to push it up, that you guys need to switch it up. And if you follow PSI Conversion on social, switch it up and get wired by PSI, then then you're still in tune to everything that's going on. And you might as well follow Project Handlines, because then you get to see some of that IRS stuff in action.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm trying to explain what I did to the truck. So we're probably going to do some more build videos and all that because I get a lot of questions about what wheel and tire am I running, what springs on the front or the rear. So stuff I've learned, I want to help people with.
What would you say when you think about when you started it? What's one of the biggest obstacles or challenge or learning points from switching everything over and then becoming, more of a racer?
So I tried to take advantage of anyone that would ride along with me or I'd let them drive the truck. So everyone says it's seat time and all that. And the big difference for me was putting a way bigger spring in the front than originally I had in there. I had an 800 pound, and I went to 1,000 and a 12, and the front end just totally woke up with that 1,200 pound spring, and I've got 1,400s going in this year. But I wouldn't have thought that until I had a guy who he runs a first gen Camaro Speed Tech chassis, and he came with me, and he's like, the front is just it's rolling too much, and it's putting the weight right where you don't want it. So I made that. She's like, if you could do this before the next event. So that weekend I went home, changed the springs, and that totally changed the way the truck felt. And I still drive it on the street. In New Jersey we have potholes and stuff, but it rides firmer than stock. But handling wise, that made a big difference. Like I said earlier, to kind of match the rear grip, I got to get the front to be under control.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you're going to be slip sliding away.
Yep.
What
Yeah.
did you go with the Ride Tech spring since you already had a Ride Tech front end?
I had they're springs from Rytec actually. They're the 1,200. I think the 1,400s are also. They do the Blue Spring. It's not a Rytec brand, but it's the brand that they sell,
Okay,
which is I'm not sure what
we'll
that
just
color.
call it the Blue Spring.
They're blue.
Yeah. All right. So for the audience, again, if you're thinking about some different changes, go get yourself an RS kit from PSI, and there's a lot of different options. So anything else to throw out to the OBS community?
No, I mean we run them. I've got one OBS. John's got two, so we know what oil pan works, what headers work, all that kind of stuff. We're not posers as far as driving our stuff and using it. So
Yeah, and that's
any
important,
combo
right?
you want to know, does the transfer? Every transmission is fit. So every manual trans we put in, every auto, the 10 speeds still fit in an OBS. You don't have to hack up the floor, which is nice. You don't need a high hump like in an earlier truck. So, but it's stuff we've done.
We're spoiled. I mean, we really are, to think that all this stuff kind of goes in, and to think over the years how many different parts, from a transmission perspective, it's pretty crazy how many transmissions, the way that GM has done it.
Yes,
And yeah, they've made it easy for us, and people out there get mad and get fired up about it, or jealous, if you will. But we are lucky that we have what we have and the availability of these parts. And to think that you could take a Camaro and bolt it up to a 94 chassis and have that IRS availability.
yep, yeah, yeah. I mean, it fit like it was unreal. Same. So if I don't know if you've ever been following a Camaro on the highway, but a fifth gen, and you're like, it looks like that car's got a real fat ass. Well, it does because it's the same width as an OBS truck. You could put it if you could fit a sheet of plywood in the back of a Camaro. That
Yeah.
rear end is that wide for it. But I
Well,
mean,
we can't
generally,
wait to see what happens with the PSI Typhoon that you're gonna, Joe's gonna make a Typhoon out of something. I don't know.
yeah,
Are
now
you
I'm
are
going to do
are
it.
you finding a lot of S10 square blazers? Or are they really hard to find?
There's one or two local that are decent. I mean, a Typhoon that's kind of beat is like in the teens here, 15, 17 grand. The nicest square blazer I've seen is 12,000. So
Oh
I
wow.
don't want to give you any ideas if you're thinking of selling me your
Yeah,
son.
it's not mine. It's his. I told him he
Okay.
could. I do the opposite. I tell him he's going to regret it. And
Yeah.
I will say though, maybe I need to charge him rent, because apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He's got a few too many vehicles at the house, and I'm like, dude, okay, eventually we got to figure out what we're gonna do. But I like his little S10, and I know how hard it's an 86. I just know how hard that stuff, and really, it's hard to explain to a kid, but when you know what you're into it pretty cheap and you're like, dude,
Yep.
you're really into that so cheap, but they start to see the value, right? So it's like, well, I know what I'm into it, but I could sell it for this much, and I bought this new Camaro and I really like this new Camaro and I need money, right? So it's that thing, and that's those lessons where I can write it down on a piece of paper right now. He's gonna say, God, I wish I would have never sold that.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
that's
no, exactly.
part of
Yeah,
it.
we've all done that. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the S10 Blazer is such a great platform. It would be cool to see if you could do an IRS setup on that, but because of that rear end, or I should say that rear compartment, tubbing a little S10 like that and really getting a wide stance on it, and then having the right stance, and then having that beefy rear end. I mean, it's such a fun ride, and they're small, but
Yeah.
there's so much room in them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the right size. It's small on the outside. They're big on the inside. But
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be fun. Well, I can't wait to follow along. I wish I had more time because I've actually contemplated doing S10 talk or something like that. I love the S10s, the square stuff. Again, I had a 93 well, they used to call it was a ZR2. So that was the
okay. Yep.
four-wheel drive version.
Yeah. Yeah. Longer control arms, all that stuff.
it
Yep.
was like a stomper, right? If you think about going back and
Yeah.
being a kid, I don't even remember it had 31s or 32s, but they felt huge back in I guess 94 when I bought. Maybe it was a 94. But either way, the S10s are going to continue to get popular. Again, for our audience, if you're thinking about some upgrades to your truck, they've got you covered, whether that's from the motor in the front to IRS in the rear. Hit up the guys at psiconversion.com. Thanks, Joe.
Cool. Thanks, Ronnie.
Okay.
Yeah, be talking to you.
I'm not going to go off air yet. Is there anything else you want to hit at all?
So, we've got search by vehicle on the site. There is a PSI conversion / C10 talk, which is a
Yeah.
site, that goes right, from you guys. And you mentioned that in the commercials. We're going to be,
Hey, so what we should do, what do you think about running a little discount on the kit? So instead of like OBS IRS, let's do obsessed, and then they get, what are you thinking, 10% or
yeah,
something?
I think the 10. Yeah, I'll do the 10.
Okay, so for you guys out there, if you're even contemplating it, let's sweeten the deal for you. Use obsessed. Know how to spell it. I'm trying to think about making sure I spell it right, but obsessed,
It's on
and
the shirt.
you get 10% off of the IRS kit. It's really a no-brainer. So that's gonna save you $140 right there.
Yep. No,
Okay.
exactly.
And then all the stuff's online. You can follow their YouTube, see what they did. You can go to Project Tan Lines on social and have a lot of fun with it. So get your
Yeah,
ass
yeah, or
out there
give
to
us
the
a call.
junkyard.
I mean, we have plenty of sales guys, to answer questions, and they're all car guys like me. They run Alex, one of the sales guys runs a square, a long bed 4-wheel drive, square C10 that he's been running for years around here, mostly in the sand and the mud and stuff. We do some rock crawling on granite and stuff too out here, but they're all truck guys and car guys, and we've also got good tech support. So if there's a problem down the road, there's retired GMA techs who are there to help you out. But stuff like the brackets, I don't know if we've had one call afterwards about how does this thing go in.
Okay.
'Cause it's pretty simple.
Well, and ultimately, I think the key is we enjoy as truck guys, we enjoy the wrench, we enjoy the time, and we enjoy the install. And you step away and you're like, this is awesome. I did this. This is fun. But if you do have a problem, knowing that if you do have a problem, there is a social media, a YouTube, and a phone that somebody on the other line of PSI is going to be able to help you and support you in your adventure if you do need it. Hopefully you don't. And a lot of times now we don't because of social media, YouTube, and so many different options. But even if it comes to wiring up your LS or your LT based motor, they got you.
Yep. Yeah, we help people every day with connections on the harness or hooking up their Dakota Digital or what size wire should I run for this fuel pump, all those kind of things. So
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a confidence builder that it's there to have that. And when you go through things, you know you can do it, and so it just takes that different times of doing it. So Let's do this for Q1 of 2024. Let's get you and John on, and let's talk about some actually front end stuff when we think about LSLT motors, and we'll throw a bunch of questions at you, and maybe we can even do like a listener Q&A amongst the three of us for a pod.
Yeah, no, that'd be a good idea. Yeah,
Okay.
there's questions every day we get.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Well, if we don't get listeners, we'll even just do your top 10 questions and we'll put them out there. But I think we could do a little bit of a set up a little thing where we get some people that, maybe they want to come in and we'll have a little, even if we're just reading it and they're watching it live, and we'll do a little Q&A.
All right. No, yeah, that's great.
Okay, awesome. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming on, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Ronnie. I'll see you.